All right, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Thank you for being here, and thank you for your interest in peacemaking. Before I speak, I always need a few minutes, just a couple of minutes of silence to center myself and feel my inner peace. So let's all just take a couple of breaths. I used to do this at Open Circle, do a centering moment like this, so we don't do it anymore, but anyway. Take some breaths and relax, open our hearts, let go of whatever we need to let go, forgive, feel gratitude and peace. So, the vast majority of people on earth want peace in their lives and in the world. But too many don't realize that they need to create inner peace before they can make peace with others. So we all need to experience peace. I believe that is why so many people were inspired seeing the monks walking for peace in harsh conditions, and the loving responses and gestures and gifts they receive from people all across their 2,300-mile trek across the US that is divided. I'm grateful for this opportunity to share some of the ways I've learned to promote peace with young people, so they may have ways to increase peace in themselves, with their family members, people in their schools, and communities. Now, AI may come up with solutions to some problems and needs, but saving life on Earth for humanity and other creatures will mostly depend on our young people being prepared with skills to collaborate and make peace, even with adversaries, so that they and others can survive in these challenging times, helping each other and the next generation to thrive in coexistence. So our kids need to learn to empathize, care, collaborate, and cooperate to solve problems and create new cultures that promote peace with respect and kindness for others. But before I share ways children and youth can become more peaceable, I'd like to share a little about my background, beginning with some of the influence of my parents. My mother and grandfather, convinced Quakers, like me, I joined the Society of Friends in my early 30s. My mother had been working for the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom during World War II when she met my dad at a meeting in New York City about starting the United Nations. He was running a guest house for refugees from the Nazis while attending Harvard Divinity School. My parents shared their beliefs and values with me and my two sisters, but they never told us what we should believe. Their only expectation was that we would always be truthful, respectful, and kind to others. So, yes, my peace activist did begin in 1959 when I was 13, when my older sister and I walked 10 miles into Boston with several dozen strangers calling for nuclear disarmament. Then at Bard College, while I was a student, I had a 2-month field period in an elementary school in Washington, D.C., where I learned that encouraging and appreciating kids' creativity improves their self-esteem, their attitudes, and their behaviors. And so I decided to become an art teacher. And eventually I got my degree in art education from Massachusetts College of Art. But first I married David Hildt, who wanted to avoid being drafted for the US war in Vietnam. So in 1968, we went to Mato Grosso, Brazil, for 3 years in the Peace Corps as volunteers doing youth development in rural communities. Later we settled in Amesbury, Massachusetts, where I became an art teacher in the high school and a community activist. With others concerned about public safety, I demonstrated many times outside the Seabrook nuclear power plant that was under construction near us. And I organized an interfaith peace committee. Well, I never aspired to become a politician. But in 1983, I was persuaded to run as a Democrat for state representative. And with the support of my 3 children's father, I served 10 years in the Massachusetts House of Representatives, learning about many issues, including the cost, benefits, and failures of some laws and programs. I learned how low-income people of color were often not treated well by schools and the justice system. When they couldn't afford defense attorneys, they were likely to be convicted and punished for any offense, spending years in juvenile facilities or prisons, at great cost to government, taxpayers, and with negative consequences for their lives and their families. So, I became a vocal advocate for prevention education programs. And our Commissioner of Public Health, Dr. Deborah Prothro-Stith, got funding for me to design and direct a violence prevention campaign led by students in 50 high schools across the state of Massachusetts. They called it Words, Not Weapons. Next, I coordinated a regional prevention coalition funded by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. Our team brought together diverse groups of youth for peace camps and workshops using the Help Increase the Peace program, HIPP, which was developed by the American Friends Service Committee. In 2000, I started Youth Empowerment Services, yes, working with schools and community organizations. And University of Massachusetts at Lowell made me an adjunct professor of sociology to train students to facilitate HIPP workshops with community groups. And in 2018, I was honored to speak to students from all over the world at the University of Peace in Costa Rica. After retiring here with my husband Alan at the end of 2009, I was thrilled to meet Livier Ayan from Jocotepec. We share a passion for teaching youth ways to be peaceable, and so we collaborated to plan and facilitate HIPP workshops at the Instituto Internacional, Love in Action in Chapala, and here at LCS. I recently found this flyer inviting people to attend a HIPP day offered for adults here at LCS in 2013, 13 years ago. I totally forgot. So, you may have heard Livier speak at Open Circle on November 30th about her new AC, Abrazo Paz. And I think there's a video of it on the website. And we can easily make tax-deductible donations to support Abrazo Paz at the website Foundation for Lakeside Charities. So now I will share a little bit about what I learned doing HIPP with young people in the US, Kenya, Mexico, and from Northern Ireland. I'm sorry, I can't project the photos of kids doing HIPP activities as I did at the HIPP Rotary, so please use your imagination to try to picture what I'll describe. When we do HIPP, we invite everyone to sit in a circle so they can all see each other and be heard as equals. We do a fun icebreaker to energize and mix up the group so that people may be sitting next to people they don't even know. And oftentimes kids would arrive at HIPP workshops like, I don't like these kids, I don't know these kids, I don't want to be here, and 6 hours later they were all friends. So then the facilitator asked the group to share their ideas in a brainstorm to create their group's norms of respect to make the conditions safe for everyone to participate fully. The facilitator may ask, how do you want to be treated? And how are you willing to treat others? So we all feel safe, respected, and willing to share our ideas and our feelings. Once the norms are agreed to by all, we ask them to agree that if they see or hear someone violating the norms of respect, that they say something without pointing fingers. Teachers who ask students to create and agree to norms of respect find that more students raise their hands to ask questions and share ideas without fear of ridicule and embarrassment. They no longer need to ask students with poor behavior to leave the class because the behavior is better. They abide by the agreement. So once everybody feels relaxed, after a few cooperative games, we usually break into small groups of 4 or 5 people for an activity called If You Really Knew Me. And this is to share ideas about ourselves that we may not have shared with friends. Whoever holds the talking toy, like this red bird, is the person we listen to without interrupting. And we suggest that everybody try to empathize by imagining how others are feeling. Empathy is one of the most important things to teach and to learn. Another very effective activity we do in HIPP is called Cross the Line. We put 2 ropes out about 5 or 6 meters apart, and the facilitator asks everyone to remain silent and to respond honestly to a series of requests, such as, Please cross the line if you've ever been called hurtful names because of your, could be your race, religion, anything. Those kids step out to cross two lines, and then they turn and face those that have not crossed the line in silence. Then they might say, here, please cross the lines if you have made fun of someone or called them a hurtful name. So after a while, after everyone has silently walked across the lines at least once, they sit down in a circle to share their feelings and what they became aware of doing this activity. Another challenging, fun HIPP activity that we did here at LCS last June, May or June I think it was, I did here with the Salto group, which is a group for Mexican youth that mentors leadership skills. And I had a 15-year-old girl from San Juan Cosala help me co-facilitate these activities. And she explained the challenge, which was to get everybody in a group across an imaginary river using magic stepping stones, which were pieces of cardboard. And she explained that if they put the stepping stone in the river and it lost contact with a hand or a foot, it would get washed away, and then they had fewer magic stepping stones. So it's always interesting to watch a group, see which young people start making suggestions of how to do it, and others start following others' directions. And then it usually takes several failed attempts before everyone realizes they can't just think about themselves. They need to think about the person behind them and reach back to help them get across the river safely. So, HIPP facilitators usually only give the essential directions to do an activity. We don't explain the purpose or what they will learn. Because after each activity, we sit down in a circle with a talking toy and ask the individuals to tell how they felt during the activity and what they learned. And usually someone says the river crossing challenge taught them the importance of listening to others' ideas, cooperating, and helping each other for the success of their group. One last activity I wanted to explain we did with the Salto group is about trust building. It's called Cars and Drivers. And in pairs, the kids, they took turns being a driver or a car being driven. So the cars had to keep their eyes closed or wear blindfolds. And the drivers placed their hands on the shoulders of their cars and started driving them around in the heavy traffic of other cars. So in the circle afterwards, the kids told each other how they felt when they had to trust their driver. So a lot comes up with these activities. In longer HIPP workshops, we may ask small groups to create role plays to demonstrate different ways of dealing with bullying and conflicts in order to avoid fighting and harm. So now I'm just going to tell you the best way to end a HIPP day or a peace camp is to sit in a circle and create what we call a web of appreciations. And we use a ball of yarn like this. So the first person holding the ball of yarn wraps it around their finger. And first they have to say an appreciation for something they're taking away from the experience of doing HIPP. And then the hardest thing they have to do is give themselves an appreciation, say something they appreciate about themselves, which is not easy for all kids. And then they pick somebody in the circle who's not yet received the ball of yarn. They say their name, and they give that person an appreciation and toss them the ball of yarn. So eventually, everybody is connected in this web of appreciation. And we can feel the positive energy of love that they've all helped to create. And at the end of a peace camp or a HIPP day, we ask for written evaluation so we can learn how effective the activities were in accomplishing certain objectives. Often, someone will say something like, I wish our school could be like peace camp, where everybody is nice and we all feel respected. And of course, my response is, your school, you could help to make your school like this. So just as kids learn to help increase peace, so can each one of us with our words and actions. By simply smiling and nodding with eye recognition, we can acknowledge someone walking past us. This is a small thing to do, but if we all try to be aware that we're all connected, and as my parents said, we're all loved as children of God. Just see what that's like. Try it and see what it's like. Don't walk by a stranger and turn your head. Look at them, smile. Nod your head to acknowledge them. I see you, namaste. And that is a small, small way, every day we can help increase the peace. So if you'd like to see a short video of young people talking about HIPP and doing some of the activities, it's on my YouTube channel, Barbara Hildt. And the HIPP manual, which has all the activities I told you about and many, many more, is available online as a free PDF. If you'd like me to send you a free PDF of my guide, Teens Creating Safer Schools, see me at the end and I will give you my card with my email. So now I would like to open it up and ask you for your brief comments on this topic of peacemaking, or to ask me any questions you might have. And I think somebody will pass a mic around. So usually we just limit it to questions, but I told Phil, my preference is to sit in circles with people and to hear other people's ideas.
So if you have a question, raise your hand, wait for the mic, and we'll, as I say, normally we accept questions, but today, just be respectful of the, hello. Are we on? We will be in a minute. There you go. If you can stand, please.
Hi, Claude Heil. I believe you are with the mindfulness group. I think we should have a mindfulness session based on that youth thing, even though we've been doing it with the talking toy and that.
Okay, Claude is right. We have a mindfulness group that meets in the Kangash Pavilion every Monday morning, where we all agree to uphold our norms of respect. We use a talking toy so that we just don't have side conversation. We listen to each other with open hearts. And we talk about all kinds of topics that are all the ideas of people in the group. So, yeah, we all have ideas, good ideas about how to make the world kinder and friendlier for everyone. So,
Does that group still meet on Monday?
yes, at 10:30 in the Kengosh Pavilion right back there. It's a pretty full group, but we could take a few more. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, world peace starts small. That's what I think I hear you saying. Do you have any thoughts about how, when we think small and try to do something in our own lives to make peace, among small groups of people, how this could somehow transition over to many of the politicians, so that these ideas could be incorporated in how they, instead of yelling at each other in the House, or in my case in Parliament, and insulting each other, that they could start doing what you do in your groups. Any idea how, or is that within the realm of possibility?
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for your question. So, when I finished my 5 terms in the state legislature, I was given a fellowship at the Bunting Institute at Harvard as a public policy fellow, and I was asked to teach a seminar, a 6-week seminar in effective public policy advocacy. It was 6 weeks, 12 hours, 2 hours a week. Well, a few years ago, I reduced that seminar to a 1-page list of 10 tips for effective public policy advocacy. And it's just what you're talking about. Obviously, it's things like, and I'll just say this, when I was in the State House, there were always demonstrations in front, people holding signs, but I never had time to go outside and ask them what they were demonstrating for or against. And very few came into the State House to speak to us. So this is what I'm advocating for. And if you can't go in person, you can make phone calls and whatever. But the point is to get a small group of people, if you can, request a meeting. You don't have to go to Washington or to your state capital. You can usually have a meeting in the district that you live in with the representative. And you do your homework. You find out what they're for and what they're against and their record. You don't criticize that, obviously, in front of them. But you find a common ground, something you have in common, a common concern. Is it public health or what? And then you build on that common ground with respect. You concisely tell your concern and what you're hoping that lawmaker will decide to do. And then you listen and you leave with the foundation of a positive relationship. So if you're lobbying a person who's not on the same side as you, or if you're in a group with people that are opposing views, it's so important to first show your respect for them so they will listen to your point of view and then respect them. You may not agree, but this is how we create positive change. We can't do it with anger, we can't do it with fear, we can't do it with put-downs. We have to find our common ground and what we all care about, our children, the earth, There's always ways to connect that way. Thank you. Any more comments?
Here we go.
Question?
Hi.
It's on.
Is it on? Yes. How do you address bullying in schools? I know I grew up in England and I encountered it mostly in my teens when, in your class or in
Bullying.
Bullying. Yeah.
Bullying.
In my class or in the school, there was always 1 or 2 guys who were the tough guys who would pick on people. And in my social group too, there was one guy that was particularly like that. And in the end, I pushed back, and I didn't get into a fight with them, but I just told them, I said, if you keep doing this, I'm going to have a go at you. So, I know that's probably not the best way to address it, but in reality, how do you control that and get that person to change their
Right.
behavior when they're a teenager?
Yeah. Thank you, Clive. A very good, important question, because bullying, not just in-person bullying, but cyberbullying is such a big problem now with adolescents. And if you read a book called The Anxious Generation, you'll learn more about this. But how do we confront a bully? Well, this is also in the guide I wrote, Teens Creating Safer Schools. How do we confront bullies? So traditionally, sometimes bullies break school rules and they get disciplined, they get suspended from school, they get punishment, then and some schools have zero tolerance for violence. You know, if a kid throws a book down on the desk, the teacher can send him out and he can be suspended, and then he's a higher risk kid. And the kids who are bullied in the US, when they can get guns so easily, may become perpetrators. So it's so important to confront bullies. And it doesn't mean backing away. It can mean doing this, standing firm and standing for the person who's being bullied, okay? And using I statements, you know, and saying, instead of you do, you say, I feel totally disrespected. I feel whatever it is. And that puts the focus on you instead of your confronting them with anger. So I could do a whole workshop on that, but I won't. Any other?
First of all, we have a...
Okay.
Okay, all my life, okay, raised in Mexico, and I knew I was different, okay? And I tried to be friendly, and not even today, I'm trying to be friendly with people, but somehow they stopped talking to me. And I wondered, what did I do? So I don't approach them, I just let them go.
Yeah.
Because my belief is, if I go and ask them, I may put them in defensive. But if they approach me, then we can discuss whatever happens. But it doesn't happen. People refuse, and instead of trying to address something, they also walk away.
Yeah, right. Well, the thing is that we have to take care of ourselves, okay? We don't have to be around a lot of negative energy, a lot of people, bullies, negative people, and all of that. We have to take care of ourselves, but I will say this, that it is good to try to reconcile sometimes. It is good to try to help friends who've had a falling out come together to listen to each other's side. And there are wonderful reconciliation programs in many schools. Before I take another question and comment, there's one thing I really want to mention, a program I've just become such a big fan of. It's based in Portland, Oregon, and it's called peaceinschools.org. Every high school in Greater Oregon and Greater Portland area, now and some in Northern California, are giving students 4-credit classes, offering 4-credit classes in mindfulness, in which they not only teach kids to meditate, but they teach them healthy social emotion skills. And if you go to the website, Peace in Schools, you could see short videos of students saying how before they took the class, they were so depressed, some of them were suicidal, they had no friends. It's totally changed their attitudes, their feelings about themselves, about their school, and it's something that I would like to see spread across the entire world. So, yeah.
Hi, thank you for your talk, and it gels in me, and especially around like coming to I statements, and that's like happening in the Western culture. I'm reading this book, Natural Wisdom by Robert Wolfe. He was raised in Sumatra, and he's really pointing out that, and there's other people pointing out this idea, that the Western European mindset that's so developed ahead and that has been so, it's brought us to this point, but that cultures like Mexico and Latin America, the South, they actually are often are coming from a different place. So it's really like we're seeing each other, but we've been heavily trained up here and they've been heavily trained down here. And I think a lot of us can really feel the attraction to that embodiment. And I think, that this integration, that it's not only for us to look at what we can give, but what we can receive, and that there's really invisible things happening. And I just wanted to say something like that.
Thank you so much. Yes, absolutely. I mean, is there anyone here who hasn't experienced the kindness of Mexicans? I mean, it's so common, and it's one of the reasons we love living here. The culture is a culture of kindness in general. Of course there are people that can't express that. But as you said, it's not just being able to express things like appreciation and kindness. It's being able to have an open heart consciousness to receive other people's caring and kindness. So if we're shut down, if we're angry, if we're so worried about all the terrible things going on and fearful, we can't live from our hearts. We're not living from our hearts. We're living from this old programmed mind, and so many people are programmed. They're programmed to respond to the fears that are being put out there. Don't trust those people. Those people are bad. Don't learn history. So, yeah, yes.
Barbara, thank you for what you're doing. And I just wanted to reinforce something you said earlier, and that is how you're going to contact members of Congress and let your feelings be known. You do not need to talk to the member of Congress. The best way to get your voice heard is to develop relationships with their district staff people. These are people that you meet in the line to drop kids off every day. They're people you go to church with. They're people who are in the Rotary Club in your local community. You don't need to go to the member. And I will guarantee you, as a former Senate staffer, if 10 people show up in a district office, they will be heard, and they will pick up the phone, and their next call will be to the chief of staff saying there are a whole bunch of people here, and they want to let their feelings be known. 10 is a huge crowd in the district office. Use it, utilize it, you'll get your member of Congress and get their attention.
Yes, thank you so much. I believe that was Benjamin Franklin who just spoke to us, correct? Oh, I'm a big fan of yours. Wow. Absolutely, yeah. Use our voices collectively, individually, write letters, but going to meetings is really important, especially when you know that you have different points of view that may not be expressed in a large meeting that the representative needs to be aware of. Yeah. So I have a few cards if anybody wants to get my guide, Teens Creating Safer Schools, and maybe you'll consider sharing it with a young person. Thank you again so much
Thank you so
for
much,
your
Barbara.
interest in peacemaking.